dawn came from the couch of her reclining, with fresh light in her arms for gods and men. And the master of heaven and high thunder, Zeus, went to his place among the gods assembled, hearing Athena tell of Odysseus' woe. For she, being vexed that he was still sojourning in the sea chambers of Calypso, said, "O Father Zeus, and gods in bliss forever, let no man holding scepter as king think to be mild, or kind, or virtuous. Let kings be cruel and practice evil ways, for those Odysseus ruled cannot remember the fatherhood and mercy of his reign. Meanwhile, Odysseus lives and grieves upon that island in thraldom to that nymph. He cannot stir, cannot fare homeward, for no ship is left him fitted with oars, no crewmen or companions to pole him on the broad back of the sea. And now murder is hatched on the high sea against his son Telemachus, who sought news of his father in the holy lands of Pylos and Sparta." To this the summoner of clouds replied,
"My child, what odd complaints you let escape you? Have you not you yourself arranged this matter, as we all know, so that Odysseus will bring these men to book on his return? And are you not the one to give Telemachus a safe route for sailing? Let his enemies encounter no one and row home again."
He turned then to his favorite son and said,
"Hermes, go make it known to the softly braided nymph that we order Odysseus home. Let him depart, but let him have no company, gods or men, only a raft that he must lash together. And after 20 days, worn out at sea, he shall make land upon the garden isle of our kinsmen, the Phaeacians. Let these men take him into their hearts in honor, and send him home with gifts of garments, gold and bronze. His destiny is to see his friends again under his own roof."
No words were lost on Hermes the wayfinder, who bent to tie his beautiful sandals on, golden, that carry him over water or over endless land in a swish of the wind. He took the wand with which he charms asleep, or, when he wills, awake the eyes of men, and so wand in hand he paced into the air, shot from Pieria down to sea level, and veered to skim the swell. A gull patrolling between the wave crests of the desolate sea will dip to catch a fish and douse his wings. No higher above the whitecaps Hermes flew, until the distant island lay ahead. Then, rising shoreward from the violent ocean, he stepped up to the cave. Divine Calypso, the mistress of the isle, was now at home. Now, face to face, the magical Calypso recognized Hermes, as all immortal gods know one another on sight. But he saw nothing of the great Odysseus, who was sitting apart, as 1,000 times before, racking his own heart and groaning, with eyes wet, scanning the bare horizon of the sea. Calypso, lovely nymph, seated her guest in a bright chair all shimmering, and asked, "O Hermes, ever with your golden wand, what brings you to my island?" The luminous wayfarer replied, "Zeus made me come, and not my inclination. Who cares to cross this tract of desolation? He notes your friend, most ill-starred by renown, of all the peers who fought for Priam's town. Now the command is, send him back in haste. His life may not in exile go to waste. His destiny, his homecoming is at hand, when he shall see his dearest and walk on his own land." That goddess, most divinely made, shuddered before him, and Calypso's warm voice rose. Oh, you vile gods and jealousy supernal! You hate it when we choose to lie with men, immortal flesh by some dear mortal side. So now you grudge me too, my mortal friend. But it was I who saved him. I saw him straddle his own keelboard, the one man left afloat when Zeus rent wide his ship with chain lightning and overturned him in the wine-dark sea. Then all of his troops were lost, his good companions, but wind and current washed him here to me. I fed him, I loved him, I sang that he should not die nor grow old ever in all the days to come. Surely I cannot send him. I have no long-oared ships, no company to pull him on the broad back of the sea. To this the wayfinder made answer briefly. Thus you shall send him then, and show more grace in your obedience, or you will be chastised by Zeus. The strong god glittering left her as he spoke, and now her ladyship, having given heed to Zeus's mandate, went to find Odysseus. The sweet days of his lifetime were running out in anguish over his exile, for long ago the nymph had ceased to please. So now she stood near him in her beauty, saying, "O forlorn man, be still. Here you need grieve no more. You need not feel your life consumed here. I have pondered it, and I shall help you go. Come, and cut down high timber for a raft. Make her broad-beamed and decked over so you can ride her on the misty sea. Stores I shall put aboard for you. I will give you a sea cloak, following wind to help you homeward without harm." And for all he had endured, Odysseus shuddered. But when he spoke, his words went to the mark. "After all these years, a helping hand. Oh, goddess, what guile is hidden here?" At this, the beautiful nymph Calypso smiled and answered sweetly, laying her hand upon him. "What a dog you are, and not for nothing learned, having the wit to ask this thing of me. Son of Laertes, versatile Odysseus, after these years with me, you still desire your old home? Even so, I wish you well. If you could see it all before you go, all the adversity you will face at sea, you would stay here and be immortal. Though you wanted her forever, that bride for whom you pine each day, can I be less desirable than she is? Less interesting? Less beautiful? Can mortals compare with goddesses in grace and form?" And to this Odysseus, the great strategist, answered, "My lady goddess, here is no cause for your anger. My quiet Penelope would seem a shade before your majesty. And yet it is true, each day I long for her. I long for home, long for the sight of home." Now as he spoke, the sun set, dusk drew on, and they retired, this pair, to the inner cave. When dawn spread out her fingertips of rose, Odysseus pulled his tunic and his cloak on. A brazen axe at first she gave him, next a well-polished adze. Now the man went to the trees and fell to chopping, and when he paused, 20 trees were down. He lopped the branches, split the trunks, and trimmed his puncheons true. Meanwhile, Calypso brought him an auger tool, with which he drilled through all his planks, then drove stout pins to bolt them, fitted side by side. A master shipwright, building a cargo vessel, lays down a broad and shallow hull. Just so Odysseus shaped the bottom of his craft. He made his decking fast to close-set ribs before he closed the side with longer planking, then cut a mast pole and a proper yardarm, and shaped a steering oar to hold her steady. He drove long strands of willow in all the seams to keep out waves, and ballasted it with logs. As for a sail, the lovely nymph Calypso brought him a cloth so he could make that too. Then he ran up his rigging, halyards, braces, and hauled the boat on rollers to the water. This was the 4th day, when he had all ready. On the 5th day, she sent him out to sea. 17 nights and days in the open water he sailed, before a dark shoreline appeared. But now the god of earthquakes, storming home, sighted him far away. The god grew sullen and tossed his great head, muttering to himself,
Here is a pretty queen. While I was gone, the gods have changed their minds about Odysseus. Look at him, just offshore of that island. Still, I can give him a ride in, and I will.
Brewing high thunderheads, he churned the deep with both hands on his trident, called up wind from every quarter, and sent a wall of rain to blot out land and sea in torrential night. Hurricane winds now struck from the south and the east, shifting northwest in a great plume of seas, on which Odysseus's knees grew slack, his heart sickened, and he said within himself, Rag of men that I am, is this the end of me? A great wave drove at him with toppling crest, spinning him round in one tremendous blow, and he went plunging overboard, the oar haft wrenched from his grip. Now the big wave a long time kept him under, helpless to surface, held by tons of water, tangled too by the sea cloak of Calypso, long until he came up spouting brine with streamlets gushing from his head and beard. But still bethought him, half drowned as he was, to flounder for the boat and get a hand-hold on the bilge, to crouch there foiling death. Across the foaming water, to and fro, the boat careened like a ball of tumbleweed blown on the autumn plains, but intact still. So the winds drove this wreck over the deep. The god of earthquakes heaved a wave against him, high as a roof tree, and an awful gloom. A gust of wind hitting a pile of chaff will scatter all the parched stuff far and wide. Just so, when the gigantic billow struck, the boat's big timbers flew apart. Odysseus clung to a single beam like a jockey riding, and then he plunged headfirst into the sea. His hands went out to stroke, and he gave a swimmer's kick. 2 nights, 2 days in the solid deep sea swell he drifted, many times awaiting death, until, with shining ringlets in the east, the dawn confirmed a 3rd day. Breaking clear over a high and windless sea, and mounting a rolling wave, he caught a glimpse of land. It made him swim again to get a foothold on solid ground. But when he came in earshot, he heard the trampling roar of sea on rock. A heavy surge was taking him, in fact, straight on to the rocks. He would be flayed there and his bones broken. He gripped a rock ledge with both hands in passing and held on, groaning as that surge went by to keep clear of its breaking. Then the backwash hit him, whipping him under and far out. Odysseus left the skin of his great hands torn on that rock ledge as the waves submerged him, and now, at last, Odysseus would have perished, battered inhumanely, but he had the gift of self-possession. So, when the backwash spewed him up again, he swam out and along and scanned the coast for some land spit that made a breakwater. Lo and behold, the mouth of a calm river at length came into view, with level shores, unbroken, free from rock, shielded from wind, by far the best place he had found. But as he felt the current flowing seaward, he prayed in his heart, and now, even as he prayed, the tide at ebb had turned, and the river god made quiet water. drawing him into safety in the shallows. Swollen from head to foot he was, and seawater gushed from his mouth and nostrils. There he lay, scarce drawing breath, unstirring, deathly spent. Then the man crawled to the river bank among the reeds, where face down he could kiss the soil of earth. He made his way to a grove above the water, on open ground, and crept under twin bushes, and here Odysseus tunneled and raked together with his hands a wide bed. And down he lay, heaping more leaves above him. So in the leaves Odysseus hid himself, while over him Athena showered sleep, that his distress should end, and soon. In quiet sleep she sealed his cherished eyes.